Let's get into this. Alright. Before we get any new material, let's give you a chance to ask questions. Any questions on demand, the law of demand, demand curves, changes in demand?
No.
I just have.
What causes a change?
Question? Tell me. Any questions on supply,
Wasn't it
law of
69 you
supply,
68.
supply curves, changes in supply?
No way.
No questions?
Oh yeah, that's days till election day.
Is it?
Oh, is it?
Oh!
Oh!
That's what it was!
I definitely said that first, but whatever.
I'm not 18, I don't have to.
I want to vote, dude.
Are you gonna take off
But it's
again?
66.
Joe
I thought it was 66.
Nancy Pelosi.
Hey, let me ask you this, something else we've learned. The market price, prices are agreement between who?
The
Buyers
buyers
and sellers.
Buyers and the sellers. How is this possible?
Because the law of something.
Oh,
Well, hold on, let's think deeply. Let's deeply
Straight to the
think.
heart.
Go like this. Think, think.
Winnie the Pooh.
This is the no.
Who does, who
time.
is that?
Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh. That's right.
I don't know.
Sometimes when he has something to think about, he'll sit in his chair and he'll go, think, think,
My brother
think.
was
Pooh
like
Bear
that.
does that.
Pooh Bear.
By the way, why doesn't he do this? Why does he do this?
'Cause he
Because
has-
you
never
never
Paul
had
doesn't
had
have
someone.
fingers, he's a teddy bear.
Whoops.
So let's think about this. The things we know. If the price is high, what happens to demand?
Goes down.
Yeah. And we're gonna have a low demand, right?
Yeah.
But when the price is high, tell me about supply.
There's a high supply.
Yeah, it's gonna be a high supply. And of course, the opposite is true,
High
right?
demand, low supply.
Bro, I'm getting a buzz cut.
You're not getting a buzz.
You're definitely not buzzing. If you get a buzz cut,
Don't
I'll
buzz
buzz.
it, just cut it.
Well, when the price is
I
down,
think you should be buzzed.
Don't buzz it.
and demand is high, and supply is low. This is a problem. If you get your brain engaged here and think about this, how in the world are we ever gonna come to an agreement on price?
Between the buyers and sellers.
The laws of demand and supply, when you think about it, if you really understand those laws, they are in continual conflict,
Except,
except at one point.
Equilibrium, something, market.
Yeah, it's when
Market
they both, when they both come
equilibrium.
together.
Yeah.
See, we did our
Nice.
homework. Did our homework.
At the market equilibrium price.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Bro, I've got so much hair on my head. I'm not gonna wait.
Is this the magic limit?
No. No, actually it could be.
Cause they live together.
Yeah.
What if we would graph
X curve.
for any particular product, whatever the good of the day is, if we were gonna do the demand curve and supply curve for the same product on the same graph, well, the laws of demand and supply are in continual conflict, except at one point right here.
That's science.
Right there it is. This is different, this is new, this is a magic moment. I don't think you fully appreciate the significance of the market equilibrium point. This is awesome, this is wonderful, this is a beautiful thing. Look at what it means. This is the price where buyers are willing to pull out the exact quantity of product the suppliers are willing to push into the market. Alright, so this is the perfect price, the market equilibrium price. That's the definition of it. Sometimes we call it the market equilibrium point, same thing. But let me help you understand it. This is how I understand it, maybe it's helpful to you. Everybody that wants one got one, and there's none left over. It's the exact quantity. So, if the price were higher than the equilibrium, well, we know the demand would be lower, but the supply would be higher, so there'd be some left over,
Why did this mean?
right? Or if the price was below the equilibrium, then we know demand would go higher, but supply would go lower. And then there'd be still some people in line who didn't get one, but they're all sold out. Right, so the perfect price, the market equilibrium, is this point right here, where the price, or where the supply equals the demand. Any questions on a market equilibrium point? Now we're gonna get really, really deep. Ooh, not ready for that yet, not ready for that yet. Let me ask you a question. What if, by the way, what's our good of the day? Let's come up with a good of
Cheez-Its.
the day.
No.
What is it? What'd you say?
Goldfish?
She said
Goldfish
Cheez-Its.
Crackers?
Yeah.
Snapple.
Snapple.
Ooh,
Apple
Snapple.
Peach.
Oh,
Gold
no apple.
fish crackers, GFC. Alright,
Snap, that's mine.
Goldfish.
let's say that says, what is the equilibrium price for goldfish crackers? Good
For
question, right? Who knows?
the big carton thing?
We don't know. Here's why, well, we'll get to that in a
$3.29.
minute. Here's why we don't know. We don't know. Because there's things that cause the demand curve to shift, right? Tastes and preferences, increase in income, right? So what if the demand curve were to shift over here? Uh-oh, what just changed? The equilibrium price.
Yeah.
Or change in taste and preferences, what if the demand curve shifted over here? Oh no. Now the equilibrium price changed. And it's not just the demand curve that shifts. Remember, earlier this week, we said there's things that cause the supply curve to shift. Change in price of other goods, changes in technology. So what if the supply curve were to shift? Oh no, now where's the equilibrium point? Oh my goodness, it could intersect with demand depending on where the demand curve is, depending on where the supply curve is. It looks as if there's an infinite number of equilibrium points, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But there's not. There's not. You have to understand there is, at any given moment, there's one and only one equilibrium price for any given product. Alright, so our good of the day is goldfish crackers. So right now, there's a certain price where everyone that wants one got one and there's none left over. But right now is a different moment, isn't it, than it was from a moment ago. That equilibrium price might have changed because the demand curve might have shifted left or right, or the supply curve might have shifted left or right.
That's crazy.
So there could be a new equilibrium point at any given moment, but at any given moment, there's only one. You follow me?
Mhm.
Alright. So let me erase this mess so we can make some sense of this. So saying at this moment, this is it, equilibrium point for goldfish crackers, our good of the day. Now, to help us understand this, and this is where we get into really economics, the economy is all about supply and demand. This is the part that I keep hinting at you, that we have so many people setting economic policies, weighing in on what we should do with our economy, who do not even understand the first few chapters of a high school economics book, the laws of supply and demand. You can't ignore them. You can't wish them away, and you sure can't legislate them away. Alright, so what if, play some what if. What if, since we don't know exactly what the market equilibrium price for goldfish crackers is. We know there's only one at this moment, but who knows what it is, right? At this moment, because things change. So let's just say that the price tag we put on that package of crackers, somebody sets it right there. It's too high, isn't it? Here's the definition of too high. If it's above the equilibrium point, it's too high. Alright, so, if they did set the price here, that used to be the quantity, right? Price of the quantity. Now, it's here, so look at the demand. The demand's there. But at a high price, what happens to supply? Goes up. So the supply is over here. There's a big gap there between the demand and the supply. Everybody that wants one got one, but there's some left over. That's called, what did we call that, by the way? When there's some left over. There's a term for it. Yeah. Read your book. That's a surplus. A surplus is an excess of unsold products. Is the result of a price that's above the equilibrium. Now I'm gonna tell you something, I'm gonna tell you the same thing two different ways. Make sure you engage your brain, cause this is important. All year long, economics will make sense if you get a hold of this. If you just say, whatever, take my word for it, you're gonna be scratching your head all year. This is extremely important. If the price is above the equilibrium, there is no mystery of what will happen. It will always result in a surplus. I don't care what good or service you're talking about. I'm gonna say that again. If the price is too high, what do we mean by too high?
People aren't willing to pay that.
No, what do we mean by too high? Above the equilibrium. If the price is above the equilibrium, the result will always be a surplus. Not usually, not most of the time, every single time. So whatever good you're talking about, if the price is above the equilibrium, it will always result in a surplus. I'm gonna say the same thing, but I'm gonna say it in the reverse order. If there is a surplus, there's only one explanation why. You don't have to scratch your head and wonder, I wonder why there's some left over. I wonder why there's a surplus. We already know why. It's the laws of supply and demand. If there's a surplus, the only possible explanation is the price is above the equilibrium. There's no other thing that could ever cause a surplus of anything except the price being above the equilibrium. How can we be so sure to make those statements? Because of the laws of supply and demand. Before the end of the period, I'll give you some examples of legislators who try to ignore them. Any questions on surplus? Yes?
But what if like a company makes something and then out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, people just like lose taste for their product and they don't buy it, so then they're left with all this stuff.
That's the change in tastes and preferences. So the demand would shift to the left,
So then surplus.
so that would change the equilibrium point. I think you answered your own question.
Sure.
I don't know. Did you? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess. I just figured it, like, if it happened like in one day would, never mind.
Remember, at any given moment, there's a market equilibrium price for a product. Now, it doesn't last for a whole day. I mean, it might, but there's no guarantee that it's gonna last for more than a moment.
Wait, so what happens if it's below the equilibrium?
Shortage.
Oh, that's true.
What if the price is below the equilibrium? Let's say we wanna slap a price tag on this package of goldfish crackers And we know there's an equilibrium price, but we don't know what it is, so we just slap a price on, and it happens to be, the price we slap on there happens to be below the equilibrium. In other words, it's too low. Alright, well, we can see what's gonna happen. At a low price, well, look what happens, the demand goes higher, doesn't it? All of a sudden, demand is over here. And at a high price, we already know law of supply. Supply is gonna go down. Now the demand is greater than the supply. Everybody, or not everybody that wants one got one. The shelves are empty, but there's people still in line. I want one, sorry, sold out. What do we call that?
Shortage.
Yeah, real fancy term, huh?
You're so smart.
That's a shortage. Now here we go again. If the price is too low, what do we mean by too low?
Lower than the equilibrium.
Below the equilibrium, the result will always, not usually, not most of the time, it will always result in a shortage, without exception, no matter what. And another way to say the same thing is if there is a shortage, we do not have to scratch our head and wonder how we ended up with a shortage. There is only one possible reason why a shortage of anything would ever exist. The price is too low. It really is that simple. If you understand what we have learned so far in this class period, you have a very good grip of economics. That's how it all works. You also know more about economics than most of the U.S. Congress, just so happens. All right. The price is up here. What's gonna happen again? Supply is greater than the demand. Back to that surplus. Now what do we do? If that ever happens, and of course that's gonna happen, right? Surpluses happen on some goods all the time, right? It's bound to happen. If it ever happens, how do we solve it?
Discount.
Well, there are three solutions to a surplus. There's only three, because if you look up here at our graph, there's only three things you can mess with. You can mess with the demand, you can mess with the supply, you can mess with the price. That's it. So there's only three solutions to a surplus. We call them the demand solution, the supply solution, and the market solution. So let's do them one at a time. Get our brains in gear. What is the demand solution
Make the demand.
to a surplus? In other words, the only thing we're gonna change on our graph is the demand. We're not gonna mess with the supply, we're not gonna mess with the price. What would have to happen to the demand to get rid of a surplus?
To go up.
Demand would have to shift to the right, wouldn't it? Go up, in other words. If that happened, then this would be the equilibrium, right? Now supply equals demand. Demand would be here. We got rid of the surplus. See how that works? That's called increasing demand. Did we change the price?
Nope.
No, we did not. Did we change supply?
Nope.
No. We call that the demand solution. Increase the demand. All right, looks great up here on the board, looks great in your notes. Question, in real life, in the real economy, how would a business go about increasing demand for their product if they had a surplus? Advertise. We ever see advertisements?
Yep.
All the time, right? They are trying to increase demand for their product. They're trying to get the demand curve to shift to the right. All right. Second solution to a surplus, we would call that the supply solution. Not gonna mess with demand, not gonna mess with the price, the only thing we're gonna mess with is supply. What would have to happen in the supply curve? Have to shift to the left, watch. Shift the supply over here. Now this is the equilibrium again, isn't it? Now supply and demand match. Got rid of the surplus. That's called the supply solution to a surplus. Decrease supply. Alright, once again, it looks great in your notes, but in real life, how would a business who had a surplus and they wanted to use the supply solution, how would they go about decreasing supply?
Get someone to buy.
No, that's increasing demand, I didn't say that.
The government
You're messing
buy.
with demand. How would you decrease supply?
Give me away.
No, you are the seller, you're the supplier, how would you decrease
Government
supply?
thing.
Say
And
what?
The government buys them, the government takes this. from-
Where's the government up here?
I don't know.
There's
it
no
says
government
in the
up
book.
here, all we have is
Stop
demand,
making
supply,
it.
and prices. How would we go about, if you were the business owner, you're the seller, you're the supplier, how would you go about shifting the supply curve to the left?
Stop making it.
Stop making it. Cut production. Alright, if it's handmade, you lay some people off. If it's made by one of those modern Marvel how it's made robotic machines, you get somebody to push the red button and turn it off. Alright, you cut production. You just shifted the supply curve to the left. Now there's no surplus. I'm not saying that would be a good solution to a surplus. I'm just saying it would solve the surplus, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is a solution.
But then you
That's
still have
all
all
we're
this
saying, is it would solve the surplus.
But how, cause you still have all this stuff,
Say what?
but you still have all this stuff.
The
No one's
demand
buying
is
it.
up.
Yeah, but it's
You're
not
the
coming in
creator
anymore.
of the thing, you're not like a store owner, you're the person that makes it.
Yeah. But like if no one's buying it, you're still stuck with it.
But people are
Still some on the shelf, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Like if, or is it just gonna go away slowly?
People go away.
Eventually, I guess it will go away slowly, but the point is,
Yeah.
we just cut the supply. There's
Yard
going to be
sales.
less than there would have been if you'd have kept making it. Right, so we have shifted the supply curve to the left.
They're not coming in anymore.
It's like Vineyard Vines sometimes will do.
If
like
you
a
keep,
big
if you
storage
keep the
thing.
machine turned on, Gabby, the supply's only getting greater, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless people are.
All right, so-
buying it.
I said there's 3 solutions to a surplus. There's a
Price.
demand solution, a supply solution, and what we call a market solution. If we're not gonna mess with demand, and we're not gonna mess with supply, what's the only other thing up here to mess with?
Drop.
Price. You
The
just
price,
have-
right? That's the only thing left on the graph. So the market solution is simple. You lower the price. If you drop the price to the equilibrium, that will solve a surplus, won't it? Sure, because as the price goes down, demand goes up, demand's the act of buying. As the price goes down, supply goes down. I'm sorry. Yeah, supply goes down. Demand goes up, supply goes down, pretty soon we'll be at the equilibrium. No more surplus. I put a star by the market solution because the market solution is always the best solution to economic problems. It's not the only one, but it's almost always the best one. We call that letting the market work. Let the market work. Repeat after me. Let the market work.
Let the market work.
Now say it like you mean it.
Let the
Let
market
the
work.
market work.
Now you're an economist. If we could just get elected officials who set economic policy to do that, a lot of our problems would go away. What are they supposed to do?
Let the market work.
Let the market work. That's the best way to solve surplus. All right. Project surpluses, we solved that problem. Price is too low. All right, that means a high demand. Whoop, that means a low supply. That's called a shortage. All right, there are 3 solutions to a shortage. I guess I don't have to unveil them slowly, I think it's pretty common sense, right? The exact opposite of the solutions to a surplus. There are three solutions to a shortage as well. There's the demand solution, the supply solution, and the market solution, so let's look at them one at a time. If the problem is high demand, that's why we have a shortage, what has to happen to the demand curve to get to the equilibrium? Don't just write this down and memorize it, you gotta own this. What has to happen to the demand curve?
Wait.
Shift which way? Let's try it. Shift it to the left. There we go. There we go, right? Now we got rid of the shortage. We decreased demand. All right, got a question for you. Looks great in your notes. Makes sense, but in real life, how do a business go about decreasing demand?
Stop advertising.
Yeah, I guess you would stop advertising, right?
Can't really
Run
do
an
that.
advertisement telling people not to buy your product. Wouldn't you love to see that ad someday? Attention, do not buy any more Goldfish crackers. There is a shortage and not enough for everybody, so stop buying our crackers. I don't think we're ever gonna see that ad, do you? I didn't say it was a good solution, especially if you're the business owner, but it would solve a shortage, wouldn't it?
Or they limit
Maybe.
what you can.
It would solve a shortage, but it would be a,
There might be those people who just go and be like, oh, I'm gonna go.
you're right.
And then
Probably. Reverse psychology, right? Actually, I can think of one privately owned business that actually does run advertisements discouraging the use of their product. Power company, FPL, will run ads or send out flyers telling you to only do full loads in the dishwasher and turn off lights in the room you're not, what do they, they sell electricity and they're trying to get us to not use their product. But they have to meet the demand for the entire state of Florida, so they're just making sure that they are able to do that. That's a weird situation, right? Normally a business isn't gonna do that, but it would solve a shortage. Alright, well, how about the supply solution to a shortage? What would have to happen to the supply curve?
Go up to the right.
Shift to the right. We shift the supply curve to the right, price, this is where they meet, perfect. We just solved the shortage. Alright, so in real life, how would a business go about increasing supply?
Get more, like, production,
Yeah,
people.
just make
hire
more, somehow make more. If it involved more employees, hire more people. If it involves machines, get somebody to push the green button, turn that machine back on, start making some more crackers. Right? Boost production somehow or another. Maybe it wouldn't be either one of those. Maybe you have enough employees, you have enough equipment, you just have to somehow get everybody to work harder with what they have, I don't know. Somehow or another, you gotta increase the supply, shift it to the right, and that would solve a shortage. Alright, now we've covered the demand solution to a shortage, the supply solution. What's the market solution? The best solution.
Freeze all that.
So let the market work. In this situation, what's let the market work mean? Raise the price to equilibrium. Raise the price to equilibrium, that will get rid of the shortage.
Well, what about, like in stores, like recently during COVID and everything, or like during a hurricane or something? What they tell people to only buy like a certain amount of something, if you can limit what they buy.
Great question.
Like they limit
Great
water.
question. I will answer that for you. Because the people who make up those policies are ignorant about the laws of supply and demand. They simply don't understand a high school economics book. I'll prove it to you. Let's say that instead of Goldfish crackers, we have
Pull out.
the demand and supply curves for bottled water. Oops. Bottled water, all right? Something that everybody buys when a hurricane happens, right? You stock up on your bottled water. in the state of Florida are elected officials who, by the way, the governor is a Republican. The Florida House and Senate have majority of Republicans. Republicans usually have a better grasp of economic principles than Democrats, just a fact of the matter. But even in Florida, Republican controlled government, what do we make against the law? You cannot price gouge, right? Price gouging is cruel. Price gouging is taking advantage of people in their time of need. So you cannot raise the price of your bottled water during a hurricane. We make that law, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. Because now we have just guaranteed that there will be a shortage. First of all, if there is a shortage, we already covered this, you don't have to scratch your head and wonder why. What is the only possible explanation for why there's a shortage?
The demand goes up.
Give me one reason why there'd be a shortage.
The law of something.
What about the equilibrium point?
Price.
The price is below the equilibrium. That's why there'd be a shortage of bottled water. Price is too low. If we let the market work, what does that mean?
Raise the price.
Raise the price. But we outlaw that. And that's the best solution. Because watch, as we raise the price, then everybody in line buying bottled water, are they gonna buy as many? No, how do we know they won't buy as many?
Price. But during a hurricane.
How do
they
you
would.
know people won't buy as many
Because
if the price goes
is
up?
above the equilibrium.
There's a better answer. How do we know people won't buy as much? Demand is the act of buying. How do we know they won't buy as much?
Economic.
The law of demand says it. It's a law, isn't it? As the price goes up, the demand goes down. So if we raise the price of bottled water, then everybody at the store shopping for bottled water is not gonna buy as many as they would have at a low price.
But if it's during a.
So what have we just done? We've helped with the shortage, haven't we? Not to mention, if we let the price go up, what will happen to the supply?
It'll go up.
It'll go up. How do we know that?
Laws.
The law of supply. These are laws. They don't happen sometimes. Just like when I jump off the roof, I don't sometimes fall down to the sidewalk, right? It's every time. The economic laws are laws. If you raise the price, the demand will go down and the supply will go up, and you will no longer have a shortage.
Even during hurricanes?
Even during hurricane, doesn't matter what nothing changes the laws of supply and demand. Great question, but the answer is nothing changes the laws of supply and demand.
But if people need
I'll
it,
give you a real life example.
they're willing to pay.
I think it was, I don't remember which hurricane, alright, whatever, it was a hurricane in Florida, you know, several years ago. And power was out, so there was a guy, I believe in Mississippi, is where he was from. He saw on the news that people were out of generators. Home Depot had sold out of generators. In other words, there was a what of generators? Shortage. Could Home Depot raise the price of generators?
No, they didn't
No,
have any.
because they would've gotten fined, cause that's against the law, cause our legislators are morons. They don't know how to solve shortages. Alright, so some guy in Mississippi says, I know how to solve a shortage. Alright, so he went to his local Home Depot, bought a bunch of generators, say $500 each, packed them in a U-Haul truck, drove them all the way to Florida, sold them off the back of his U-Haul for $1,000 each. Making a profit, wasn't he? He got arrested. He got put in jail for price gouging. This is a true story. He got put in jail for price gouging. The government confiscated generators and put them in storage. Now who has the generators?
Government.
Nobody. He was actually selling them for $1,000 each. Let me ask you a question. You already know the answer to this. Who sets prices?
People, sellers and buyers.
The buyers and the sellers. He was selling them for $1,000 and people were buying them for $1,000. That means the people buying them for $1,000 were happy. How do we know they were happy?
They bought
Because they bought it. Do they have one now?
Nope.
No. Generators were put in storage, confiscated by the government, so the people, wait, I got $1,000, I want that generator. No, that's price gouging, you can't have it.
So that,
So we guaranteed there'd be a shortage, right? They would not allow the supply to go up. The guy was willing to shift the supply curve to the right and solve the shortage, but they wouldn't let him.
they can just just a person, he didn't even own a business or anything, did he?
No,
He just sold it?
that was against the law.
Hmm.
So, well-meaning, and my point is, to make good laws, you have to be more than well-meaning. Right? Just because people who make laws' hearts are in the right place, doesn't mean their head isn't up there, you know what. Right? It takes more than having your heart in the right place. Now, I am a cynical old man. In my opinion, it is impossible to be overly cynical when it comes to the government, especially the federal government. So I don't think they always have their heart in the right place. I think they have an agenda to gain and keep power. But even if I'm wrong, even if I'm just a crazy, cynical old man, even if their heart is in the right place and they're just trying to help, that doesn't matter. If they ignore the laws of supply and demand, you do that at your own peril. You can't legislate them away, and that's what they keep trying to do. There's countless examples of that. That was just one. Is that a magic moment or what? Where supply equals demand, market equilibrium point, that's perfect. That's perfection. Everybody that wants one got one, and there's none left over.